EA Interviews, episode 65.
Inspiration, transformation, success stories, and the imperfect action round. 7 days a week. Join Mario Ficini for today's Expert Authority Effect interview.
All right, Expert Authority World, I am excited for today's episode. I have none other than Katrina Percy, all the way from the UK. She's been in the National Health Service for over 20 years. She has done some amazing things. She was awarded Chief Executive of the Year in 2012, and now she heads up the team at Ryalto, a mobile app to help people with their healthcare needs. I'm excited to bring her up right after we thank our sponsor.
How would you like to grow your wealth easier than you think with the change you probably don't notice anyhow automatically? That's why I started the compounding interest snowball investing with Acorns and advise you do too. Get started simply and easily today at eainterviews.com/acorns.
Here she is, ladies and gentlemen, Katrina Percy. Katrina, it's great to see you today.
Good evening, or good morning maybe, where you are.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. Surprisingly sunny over here in the UK.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. If you want to send some of it over this way, that would be fantastic. What inspired you to get into the National Healthcare Service?
So I'm lucky that I grew up under a father who was a doctor and a mother who was a physiotherapist. So I often saw the great work that healthcare professionals did for their patients. So when I graduated out of university, the opportunity to join the graduate training scheme in the National Health Service came to me. And I had a fantastic sort of 22 years working in the National Health Service.
Who would you say you help and how do you help them?
So in Ryalto, we brought together, it came together out of a number of factors. Healthcare worldwide is really hitting some major challenges, but particularly for the workforce. And that's who we're aiming to help. We saw people are overstretched. Morale is often quite poor at the moment in the health service, and that's led to major staff shortages, which obviously ultimately is really not good for patients. So our ultimate goal is to be able to help organisations provide better healthcare to their patients. But we do it by trying to support the workforce, the staff, the healthcare professionals.
What would you say is the competitive advantage you have with your app versus other things in the market?
So what we've tried to do is work a lot with those frontline healthcare professionals as well as the leaders of organisations to make sure we're hitting all of their pain points. So whilst you might get some technology that will allow you to book your shifts, or you might get technology to message and communicate with your colleagues or to find the latest guidelines, what we've tried to do is make it super easy, bringing all of those things into one platform so that the nurse, the doctor, they only have to go to one place to stay up to date with what's happening in their team, their organisation, find their colleagues, and book all of their shifts at work.
So with all the stories and everything you've been able to help with people, what's one of the coolest ones you've noticed when they started using your app?
So we've had some exciting things. One of the big things has been the amount of money we saved in a hospital in the UK. There's a hospital called Milton Keynes Hospital, and they saved over £1 million last year on their staffing costs, which they've been able to put back into supporting their staff to offer better patient care.
Can you dive a little bit deeper in that? I know it's pretty impressive.
So what we did is we just gave loads of choice to the nurses and to the doctors about when they wanted to work and when they wanted to do overtime. We added a bit of fun and a bit of gamification. Are you saving to go on holiday? Why don't you take these shifts, and that's going to help you pay for your holiday. We have priority shifts. When you're hitting a period like Christmas over here, obviously getting staff is a real challenge. So we add a bit of gamification and fun over that, offering things like you get into a draw for, say, £500 extra if you work a shift in that on Christmas Day.
I like that. Gamification is a lot of fun. I'm familiar with it. Tell us about some of the other awards and achievements that people can get.
So some of the other bits people have said is literally knowing what's going on in their hospital. So you're able to reward the staff directly. So we get the stories out. You might have a nurse who's worked for 40 years in an organisation who in the past Maybe they published it in a magazine somewhere that sat on a coffee table. But frankly, the other nurses are too busy to be picking up those staff magazines. Now it pops onto their mobile phone on their feed for their organisation, driven by Ryalto, and everybody gets to celebrate when that nurse has hit her 40-year anniversary of nursing. So you're directly creating that real sense of reward, but a recognition about the amazing work that healthcare workers do.
That's fantastic. I know people are getting excited right now being able to hear you. Where can they find the app?
So if they go to ryaltoapp.com, they'll find all the information and they can just connect to us. We're beginning to get out there. We're launched in a number of hospitals in the UK now, and I'm pretty excited. We're coming over to Cleveland to make our first US launch, and then we're in Boston a week later to be launching there. And we're beginning to speak at some innovation events in the US and the UK. But if they go hit the Ryalto app website, they'll find out all the information and they'll get through to me or one of our very small team. We're an early stage company and we'd love to just talk to people about what we're achieving.
That's fantastic. When are you coming out to Detroit?
I look forward to coming over, although you're telling me about the rain. That's not sounding so good.
Well, that was last week. It's better now. And you said you have so much sunshine, you can bring some over and share it with us.
Yeah, we'll bring some over. I'm in Boston on Friday. My US colleague, Rebecca, is running a fantastic conference over there with the University of Massachusetts, looking at opportunities for innovation in healthcare.
You know, Rebecca's awesome. I had the honor and privilege of producing a live stream with her in New York. And that's where we first connected. I was producing the live stream for Show Me Your Stethoscope, and she was telling me about what she was doing, and I was just astonished. And I'm so excited to have you here because you are making a difference, and it is important for the healthcare field. I have a lot of friends and family that are in it, and I think, how do I say this? Some people just don't care, and they should, because it's industry that everyone needs, and I think they don't get treated as well as they should.
So I think it's interesting. There's been a massive surge, as you'd expect, in technology and digital innovations around direct patient care. But it feels to me that there was a real lack of innovation digitally for the workforce themselves. So they're still expected to go log on to a laptop and get their printed newsletter to find out what's going on, go sit in a classroom to do training. But everyone lives their life on a mobile, particularly busy healthcare professionals. They're walking around wards or floors, as you guys call them, seeing their patients. So what we found is by taking our platform mobile, you're able to help their workforce connect with the organisation. They can get their news in bite-sized chunks. They can find people when they need to find them. They don't have to then go find the directory or something or phone the operator to find people. So I think what made me so excited about Ryalto was that opportunity of taking the technology that is being used in other ways and thinking, how do we help those healthcare professionals who, let's be honest, are run off their feet and we're facing such massive workforce shortages.
So with the workforce shortages, which is not a good thing, how do you see Ryalto playing a role in changing that over the next 5 to 10 years?
So I think if you look at any evidence around any sector, what you find is those organisations who really invest in their staff retain the best talent, and they stop people wanting to leave the professional or the skilled service that they're running. And I think that we've fallen behind on that. You look at the best employers in the world, they're investing masses in this. And what Ryalto is aiming to do is start correcting that. So how do we retain nurses at the bedside? How do we make a really attractive proposition to be a nurse at the bedside, allowing you to have control about when you're working, allowing you to find out the latest care guidelines when you want to look at them. So by putting that healthcare professional at the centre, giving them a really super simple mobile tool to run their work life, that helps retain people into the health service, and it will be a global phenomenon, is what we believe.
I love that. I love the vision, and it reminds me of this story about one of the staff going, boss, we're doing all this training for the staff. We're putting all this money into them. What if we train them and they leave? And the boss says, but what if we don't train them and they stay?
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. We all are fighting over the talent that exists out there. I mean, I genuinely believe that everybody is talented, and it's about tapping into that and tapping into their motivators and allowing people to do jobs that are very rewarding and fun. I think it's important as well that they enjoy their work, because you get the best out of people. And that's what Ryalto was sort of formed on. Here is a channel to be sharing all of that. But the best way to get the best people is to develop your own talent. So one of the next product developments that we're bringing on Ryalto is all around training and development. So how do people identify their own training and development needs, and how do we make it super simple for people to access them, and for the organization to know they've done that training, so that then they can get more opportunities within that organization.
What have you found is the biggest success story you've had since launching the app? I know you were telling us the one about saving £1 million, which is fantastic. Is there anything that beats that?
So that's the site we've been live longest at. We've been there a year, and their board have all signed off on those figures. But we've had other success. In the second site we launched, they had a real issue that they had quite a high number of shifts that were unfilled by nurses. So there weren't enough nurses to offer the patient care they wanted to offer. And we took, within 6 months, a third of those unfilled shifts, and we filled them with staff who were local to that hospital, which improves the patient care, but also takes stress off the other staff because they're not quite as overstretched.
Wow. So how big do you see? You said you see this going worldwide. How many markets do you plan on going into the U.S.? Because it sounds like you're coming after us pretty aggressively.
So it's an interesting board debate, I have to be honest. How fast do you go, and which markets do you focus on? And we've taken probably the middle road strategy, having looked at the very extreme. We've had incoming requests for us to launch Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Brazil, Portugal, Saudi Arabia, as well as US, UK. So our approach at the moment is to start in the UK and in the US, and we're trying to cluster. So we've got a number of sites that we're looking at launching around the northeast. And then a number in central north. But I gather I've got a trip to Texas coming in a couple of weeks, so I'm super excited about that as well.
Well, I have friends in Texas and actually New Zealand and Australia as well. They're all nice areas, but I can tell you Texas is going to be a little bit warmer than Michigan would be this time of year.
I think one of the challenges when you run an early stage business is keeping that balance between, focusing on your priorities, but not closing down to miss anything there's a real opportunity. And so that, I think, is one of the ongoing debates.
I agree with you 100%. And I'd also challenge and say it's not just with startups and beginning stage companies. I think you have the advantage of saying, hey, we're open to these possibilities, and, let's take a look at this. Maybe it makes sense. Maybe it doesn't. Well, I see a lot of my clients, maybe they've been around for 5, 10, 15, 40 years even, but they're so used to doing something one way, even if they do change. I'm thinking of social media 9, 10 years ago. There was a lot of people that were early adapters, and there was a lot of people that are like, we'll get around to it basically. And by the time they got around to it, it had shifted again. So there is some speed here where I think if it's a new company or older company, you have to really know what that vision is and go, does this line up? And, I've asked people for years, does this get me closer to or further from my goal? It doesn't mean it's good, bad, or indifferent. It just means, hey, this is my focus right now. Mine is with this show and helping my clients. And conversely, like yours, it's opening new markets around the world, it sounds like. But you're clear on that vision.
So I think it's quite interesting, because one of the things that I've really enjoyed, having moved out of an organization where I had 10,000 people, we've got, under 50 in this organization. It's very different. And I think one of the problems with very large organizations is you often put lots of hurdles in place that stop you making any decisions. So it almost feels risky to try new things, and you miss the fact that the greatest risk was doing nothing differently, and always carrying on. And the nice thing in a small business is you can be very agile, you can make decisions very quickly, and we have an enormous amount of challenge. Our chairman, James McHugh, is a serial entrepreneur, and he is phenomenal, but my goodness, he doesn't hold his punches back. He's very, very challenging. And in a way, what I see is that really brings out the best in a lot of us, but it's a pretty scary ride. But if you flick this into how can Ryalto help larger organizations, that's one of our aims. So the hospital we're launching in Boston was particularly excited about using our platform to drive a culture of innovation in a hospital that's already world leading. So they're already one of the most innovative hospitals, but they're thinking ahead of that. How do we drive that culture further? How do we get every single member of staff really thinking in an innovative way? How could we do things better for patients today? How could we do big projects that are better for patients? It's that NASA quote, the janitor was trying to put the man on the moon. So how do you drive that culture throughout a whole organization? And that's where Ryalto comes in, because you're able to message, you're able to use that mobile channel of communication to create much more frequent, short bursts of communication. A bit of internal competition between teams always drives innovation. So it's really interesting. My lived experience of trying to drive those sorts of cultures to drive improvement for patients. And now what I'm doing is running a platform that's about enabling that sort of change, still living with my own challenges about how we focus and keep on the right priorities.
Have you tested out different mediums within the app, such as delivering the information via text versus image versus video versus audio for different segments of it?
Yeah, so we on our app, you can use all of those different, you can call, you can put up a little video, you can just message directly, or you can do notification and group messaging. And I think the good thing with that is realizing that everybody learns and everyone takes on information differently. So I'm much better when I get, my little messages through. That's how I learn. That's how I pick up information. But a lot of people nowadays, particularly younger generation, really like videos and short little blogs. So what we do is we have things like the chief nurse or the chief executive, rather than just putting out that printed A4 sheet of news each week, they do a little video as well. And then what they do is post short bites throughout the week of the information, rather than it all comes out on a Friday afternoon and everyone goes, oh, here's the newsletter. And so these new methods, taking what is the best of social media-based communication and then applying that into the workplace. So one of the things we've done is we've employed a couple of people, one of them who's got a PhD in behavioural economics. She understands how different types of personalities tick. We've got digital marketing experts. And what we do is we work with our customers so that they can use our technology to the best of its ability to help them deliver what's important for their staff and their patients.
That is so great that you're using all of it. I've told my clients for years, and ever since I published my first book, I love that you can use video. This is why I decided to use it for my show, but so many people underuse it. So the fact that you're using it, good for you, because you can take the transcripts out of it, which is pretty common nowadays and everyone kind of knows it. But 10 years ago when I was talking about it, it was like, oh my gosh, you can do that. It's so much highly leverageable. And you're absolutely right. You don't know if someone's going to click on it. They want to read it. Maybe I'll be honest, there's times when I watch a ton of video and I produce a ton of video. But there's also times I go, I'm tired of all this technical stuff, and I'll grab an email or I'll grab something and just print it out and walk away. I still love all the books I read are still, I got some sitting on the desk right here, and I just love having them in the hands, and you can disconnect from all this stuff. And then other people want the short audio snippets. So I think it's awesome you've incorporated that, because you're right. You never know how people are going to interpret it or disseminate the information, consume it. Everyone's different.
So I think you're spot on, and you're obviously way ahead of understanding that to what I used to be like. as a chief exec, when I diligently sent out my little newsletter, one of the really exciting things with Ryalto is when I used to send my newsletter out, I barely even knew who opened the email. And now we can track all of those statistics for the organization. So behind it, they begin to know, what do people like looking at? What does attract people to come and read the latest news or read what's going on or message with their colleagues or get involved in a conversation? And we can track all of that from various angles. So we can tell them on the average, if I look average across our current organizations, at about 11:30 in the morning and at about 4:30 in the afternoon are the most common times when people start reading news. Friday evenings is the most common time when people sit there and think, I want to take all of these other shifts, and when they choose when they want to work. And actually, we found Saturdays and Sundays were the most popular day to go work those extra shifts. So we're suddenly able to give the organizations, our customers, a whole load of analytics that help them then go the next step afterwards and help them think even better about how they're going to communicate and engage with their staff.
That is fantastic. And I've told people for years, you need to know your numbers, you need to know your metrics. And I will say that the information gatherer side of me and the researcher, I'll say, is I love having all this stuff online because you can pinpoint all those analytics. You can check the email rates. You can see who, like you're saying, the times. That's a lot of people don't get into that. Let me ask you about your videos. Do you know the watch times of your videos and the consumption rates?
Yep. So we can tell people exactly what the timings are that people are reading. Now, one of the interesting things when you're a CEO in a large healthcare organization, so I had 250 sites, 10,000 staff. Actually, what you often want to know is where you have disengaged members of staff. But with the greatest will, you can't possibly be everywhere all the time. So one of the really useful tools is actually the reverse. Who's never opening anything? Who's never communicating? Who's never attending any extra training? And that can pop up a red flag for the leadership of the organization to say, we need to go take a look here. We've got a whole pocket of staff or a team who seem to be really disengaged when you compare it with the rest of the organization. Now, for me, as a healthcare leader, that's one of the most useful things. It can preemptively give you risk assessment where you've got disengaged teams, and we know that correlates with patient risk.
That's fantastic because you always have that top 10%. You know what they're thinking, you know what they're doing because they're so engaged, but it is important to know, hey, who's the bottom 10, 20% we haven't heard from? What are they thinking? What's going on with them?
Okay.
I found one thing is, do I have the right email?
Yeah, so how do you find people? So one of the cool things with our app is it masks people's phone numbers because it's based off their work email and it's credentialed off the work organization. So although it's on their personal device, so it's easy for them to blend their work and their home life in the way that we all do nowadays. I mean, you can turn it off if you want, but most people want to blend nowadays. They don't have to expose their personal phone number, which is often people feel a bit reticent to opening that up. But you can find anyone in your organization now. And you can find them by the job role. So if you want to find the diabetes specialist nurse, you can just type in diabetes specialist nurse and they all pop up for your organization. So it makes it really easy. Another thing I was just going to say on engagement, though, that you got me thinking about is we're often very good in large organizations and in small ones of cascading from the top down, and you only get to about 2 layers down to the sort of manager role, the matrons. What we've often been poor at is reaching everybody in an organization. And when you look at the reader numbers and the reader times on our app, actually is often some of the most junior staff who are spending the most time reading the news or booking their shifts or communicating with people on our app. So we've sort of turned it the other way up. And one of the things is helping organizations think about what's important to those individuals rather than what do I just want to project out to them. And so simple things like what's on the menu in the canteen today, so people can take a look and take a choice. That often sits alongside the things I was telling you about earlier around long service awards, but that might sit alongside a really important clinical piece of information about a new drug that's being trialled or a new piece of research that the organization's doing. And it's that blend is what we found in our most successful organizations has been, the sort of golden bullet of it all.
Well, that I'm impressed that you're looking into it that deeply, because I work with a lot of CEOs as clients and also colleagues, and a lot of them, I would say the people I know, they generally go do a little bit deeper, but it is a problem because most people, you're limited on time, so you just communicate with the upper levels, but some of the best ideas can come from anywhere. Who's in the day-to-day that goes, hey, this is actually a problem, we need to fix it, even though on paper it may or may not look good.
That's what we get super excited when we get to work with clients who really understand those issues, and what they're seeking to do is make the best of everybody in their organization and really draw out the talent and allow people to perform at their absolute best. So that's probably our most exciting time, is when we find a client who we're launching with who's like that, who already understand that concept, because then we can work with them, we can help them, we can advise them, we can put the software in and give them this mobile channel. But that's always exciting.
I love that you're doing that, because I like working and aligning myself with heart-centric CEOs and entrepreneurs also, because not everyone cares. Straight up, you might be successful, but they just don't care. And I think you should have both. Have the success, but also have the heart. So let me ask you about speaking. I know you're coming out to Boston. What has speaking done for your company?
So I've done quite a lot of speaking over my time, probably on the more traditional stand on a stage in a conference. And I think it's very much a two-way thing. So yes, it's absolutely great to be able to get out there. You create that buzz talking about what you're doing, and everyone back, at base is like, wow, we're out there, we're talking about it, getting super excited. But one of the things I often love when you're speaking is the challenge, the questions, because they get you thinking again. So often you can sometimes get stuck a bit in a rut, can't you? And you're all working together to plow through. And you get that left field question and you think, I hadn't thought of that. Well, that's a massive priority, and it just gets you thinking again. So I think there's a two-way benefit of speaking, getting your message out, but checking yourself and getting those questions back.
I love that answer. I enjoy speaking also, and it's fun to connect with the audience because, like you're saying, the two-way street, you get to hear what they're thinking, you get to connect with them. And it's also great. I recommend this to anyone listening. If you've never done speaking, it's a good time leverage too, because you can speak to 100, 1,000, 10,000 people, and there's no faster way. Have you ever spent more than a half hour typing an email or a LinkedIn post or just crafting a message?
No, if you spoke to any of my team, they'd all laugh because I'm terrible with email.
Well, it sounds like you're doing it smart. There's sometimes I'm like, I'm going to take 5 minutes and send this out. And then like an hour later, I'm like, wow, that was really well written. This is huge. But I'm like, I could have also just gave a presentation to 1,000 people. And, you have to realize what you're doing. But all of them are good. And I'm excited to hear that you're using everything in your arsenal, if you will. So we're going to jump to the imperfect action round. But first, guess what we're going to do?
Oh, I'm excited. What are we doing now?
Something I just started a few episodes ago. I'm calling it what am I calling it? The Expert Authority Roller Coaster. Now.
Oh my goodness.
So I have questions like on a 1 to 10. 1 is kind of like, who's an actor or actress you'd love to connect with and meet? And 10 is a very deep question. How are you feeling today? I've got about a dozen of them. So these are...
You take it easy on me. It's late at night here.
Okay, so we'll go with this one. If there was one thing you would change about the healthcare industry, what would it be?
One thing I would change. I think that actually it's true in the UK. People don't believe it, but as much as the US, that actually if we're really going to revolutionise healthcare, we need to work together on it. And somehow we're so set off on being competitive that actually if we work together, we're going to create better healthcare for all. You have to have the competitive piece. But I think sometimes we're stuck in that, and people don't believe it about the National Health Service. They think we're all holding hands and working together the whole time. And that's definitely not true. So I think it's trying to think outside your organization as well as inside your organization.
So more collaboration and less competition.
Yeah.
Very good.
I keep the competition because it keeps you on your toes.
It
but
does.
Let's collaborate a bit more on healthcare.
Excellent. All right, we're going to thank our sponsor and come back for the imperfect action round.
Invest automatically, save for later, and spend today. That's why I love Acorns. I used to think spare change didn't make a difference and saving and investing was an old-fashioned manual process. It's not, and it's a game changer. If you're not leveraging compounding interest in your business and life, automatically you're missing out. Acorns not only makes saving and investing easy and automatic, it makes it even more valuable by investing with diversified portfolios, spare change, extra cash, and rounding up everyday transactions. You can even set recurring monthly investments in the amount you desire. To make good great, there is also a debit card option that will continue to help you save and invest even further when you spend. Plus, no minimum balance and overdraft fees. Now, for the cherry on top. They have partnered with 250 plus companies and brands, and growing, with their Found Money program to invest back a percentage into your account with the everyday purchases when you shop. 2 of which you're probably listening to this right now through an Amazon or Apple device. Get started profiting from your everyday life and business simply and easily today at eainterviews.com/acorns. Once again, that's eainterviews.com/acorns.
All right, we're back with the imperfect action round. Katrina, are you ready to take imperfect action?
Okay, I'm trying to engage that brain.
So this is the funnest part. Well, the whole show is fun, but I love this because it's action items you answer in 60 seconds or less. The first one, what is the fastest path to the cash in your experience?
Fastest path to the cash. It's really understanding the problems and trying to solve the pain points for your clients, I think.
I love that, and I agree with it. Number 2, what is the biggest problem you see your prospects making and the fastest way they can fix it?
So I think in healthcare, we often just, it's horrible to use this analogy, we treat the symptoms, not the cause. So really understanding the cause of some of the challenges that we face and tackling those. Sometimes it takes a little longer. You might need to work on the solution for, a year or 2. But let's look to the longer term to put proper solutions in rather than just patching up against the symptoms.
Very good. Number 3, how do you maximize the customer lifetime value?
So for us, that's about working with the customer. So just selling a piece of software, it ain't going to really do anything. Let's be honest. As I said earlier, in-house, we also have a load of expertise. We can work with those customers and we make them a customer for life. And that's our philosophy within Ryalto.
I love that. What is a business book you would recommend?
So Mark Britnell, who's the global chairman of health for KPMG, has just written a fantastic book all about the crisis in workforce globally. And what's so interesting to me, and I worked in Africa for a couple of years, is what he's pointing out is if we could just learn from around the world, and it might be Africa, it might be China, or it might be the US, we could solve that workforce crisis. So Mark Britnell's book, I'd highly recommend it.
Thank you for that recommendation. All right, well, the last question I have for you is where can they get more information and what should they expect?
So if you just head over to ryaltoapp.com on the, and that's Ryalto, APP. Ryalto is a bridge in Venice, and it's a market and a meeting place, and that's where we got the name. But it's ryaltoapp.com. Everything you need to know is there. Excuse me, a bit croaky. And you'll be able to connect with myself or one of my lovely team, and we'll be super excited to come and talk to you about how we can help you connect and engage with your workforce.
Excellent. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes for your future episode. I'm going to throw in one more here because, well, it's my show and I want to know a little bit more behind the scenes. What's one thing that no one knows about Ryalto that you're going to tell everyone right now?
What's one thing? we've got the most amazing board behind. So I sit often the front of it, but we've got an amazing board of James McHugh, the chairman, and a guy called Steve Garnett. He's been at the top of some massive software companies. And I think that often having that very powerful board, and believe me, it's not easy, particularly when you're having phone calls with them around the world. That's what really creates something special that we can then put out for our customers.
Well, I appreciate you for sharing that. It has been an absolute pleasure. It has been great to connect with you. I thank you for coming on, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for your interview. It's been brilliant and lots of fun. So thank you very much.
The pleasure is mine. All right, Expert Authority World, we have another good one here. We'll see you on tomorrow's episode. Take care, and God bless.
Spare change? How's that going to make a difference? I know that's what I thought before I started investing with Acorns. Throwing change in a jar is not very leverage and time-consuming, but what about all the transactions you don't use cash for? Like majority? Acorns not only invest your spare change automatically with roundups, it also lets you add a preset amount to each transaction regardless. It's pretty inspiring to see how quickly and easily you can end up with a pile of cash instead of a pile of receipts. Get started simply and easily today at eainterviews.com/acorns. Once again, that's eainterviews.com/acorns.